My dad passed away on a Sunday, and my mother wanted him in the ground, her words, not mine, on a Tuesday. My mom and I agreed to meet up at the place where my dad would be buried. She wanted a graveside service, and so she was like, we're going to do everything today. Mind you, this is Monday. This is not even 24 hours later. So we went, got the plot situated. After that, we went and picked out his suit and all the clothes he would need to wear. And then we went to the funeral home and went over everything that we would need for the services. And I'm going through the pamphlet, I'm looking at the breakdown of the pricing and everything. And the gentleman that was handling the arrangements, he was asking questions like, do you need this? Do you need that? Do you need this? And every time my mother said, no, 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 no funeral card, no family card, no viewing, no program, no obituary, no nothing. And I just sat in disbelief. And eventually the gentleman was like, hey, we can do a viewing for free on Wednesday. And she was like, no, I don't need a viewing. And I was like, I need a viewing. And I said that to him, and I was like, it's free. I like turned to my mother. I said, it's free. And family's going to want to come. You're rushing this funeral, and people aren't going to be able to make the funeral. And she was like, it's not that many people anyway. And I'm like in disbelief because I'm like, this man was loved. And if you're doing it right, people will show up. So I asked for the viewing, and I'm the one that set up the time for it just to ensure that people could come and pay their respects in case I can't make the funeral. She was telling him how she wanted the funeral tomorrow on a Tuesday. And he even said, that's a little too fast. That's not going to be possible. And she was like, I've put bodies in the ground quicker and da 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 and all this weird stuff. And I just tune it out. And eventually we leave because I have to take my kids to the dentist. And then afterwards we meet for dinner. And at dinner, I didn't push it. I didn't talk about anything regarding Sunday or what I knew because I didn't want to jeopardize me being able to be at the funeral. At this point, we didn't know the day of the funeral, but she was gung ho about having it Thursday. Tuesday comes and passes. I tell everybody, this is a viewing, let everybody know this is a time. And at this point, my mother had told me that she wasn't going to be there. And I had already planned on being there all day to just receive everybody. But when Wednesday comes and I get there, I'm there for maybe 10 minutes, and my mother comes in, and throughout the whole 3.5 hours, she's laughing. She's not even paying respects in the proper way. And it was so odd. She was talking about how she wanted to put him in the ground on Tuesday. These are her words, put him in the ground on Tuesday. And when she's done arrangements for other family members, she was putting him in the ground quickly. And the people that she was bringing up were loved ones of family members that were right in front of her. And she was talking about their loved ones and how she put him in the ground and like an animal. And then she's laughing, and everybody is laughing with her. But I personally think it was like uncomfortable laughter. Once the viewing's over, I speak to family. I tell family how I'm feeling. And I'm about to leave when people that my mother went to school with come in. And this is when I find out my mom's been saying that she's a minister, but I didn't think she was a real minister until her classmates from a divinity school from a local college visit. And they call her by a different name because apparently she has a different name with these people. They confirmed that they went to school together, they graduated together. My mother has a master's of art from a divinity school, and she is truly a minister. And I was in disbelief. But more on that later. After the viewing, I talked to my family and friends, and everybody says how her behavior was abhorrent. It was weird. It was unnecessary. It was disrespectful. And I'm just trying to make it to the funeral, which is the next day. Thursday comes. Keep in mind, my mother told people she did not want dark colors at all. She's like, no dark colors, all light colors. I didn't care. I wanted to wear dark colors because I was mourning. And my family and I come. My in-laws are able to come as well. 40 plus people came to the viewing, and around the same amount of people came to the funeral. And I just can't help but imagine how many people would have been able to come had she not rushed everything. I'm thinking the funeral, it's graveside, so I'm thinking it's gonna be short. And my cousin walks up to me with a piece of paper and he's like, "Hey, Auntie wants you to read this." And it's a piece of paper and it's like filled with a bunch of quotes and it's like numbered 1 through 5. And my mother had prepared statements for people to speak. And then what everybody else was saying was a bunch of scripture that had nothing to do with my dad. And I told him, no, I can't do it. She didn't even she didn't even give me a chance to mentally prepare to speak. She didn't even go over this with me. And I was with her throughout this whole thing. And I burst into tears and my cousin said, no, it's fine. I'll read it. And then I blinked and I realized everybody that spoke after him did not know my dad. She even had somebody from her school where she got her master's speak. And it was the most odd thing. I described it to my cousin who couldn't make it, and they said, oh, it was like a Jehovah's funeral. Like it was not personal at all. There was no thought put into it at all. Nobody from the family spoke from their heart. Nobody was able to give a eulogy, and even my mother's own eulogy was so impersonal. She spent 40 seconds talking about him, and then the rest was about random scripture and God, and it was just so odd. After the funeral, she wanted to try and like eat with my family, and I was like, oh, no, I'm good on that. Because at this point, it's done. What's done is done, and I'm done. My son wants to watch the body go down into the ground because we brought our kids. And I'm like, yeah. And I told him to go sit under the tent because it was so hot that day. It was like 10 o'clock when we started. And at this point, it was like 10:40, 10:45. So my kids are sitting under the tent. They're watching them lower the casket in the ground. And I don't know why, but my mother walked up to my children. And you guys, if you know, my son is autistic and his intrusive thoughts take over and he will ask questions. And he looked at my mother because she approached them and she started saying, hey, how you doing? Do you know who I am? And my son points to her and says, are you the abusive mother? Before me and Huey can even check our son, our daughter is like bopping him on the head with the fans that the funeral home made. Because since there wasn't an obituary program or anything, they did make fans. And so my daughter's hitting him on the head, just hitting him on the head. And my mother says, I'm sorry, what? And there were two older people not too far from the kids that heard that interaction. And I was so embarrassed, but I was also like, not because he didn't lie. It wasn't the time or place for it, of course, but the kids don't know much, but they know that the reason why she's not a part of our lives is because of the abuse. Now that they're older, they do know a little bit more, but not all these intricate details. But they do ask, why don't we see your parents? Because they've always seen my husband's parents, his dad and his mom. And when they were younger, I would tell them, she's just not a nice person. But as they kept asking and got older, I told them a little bit more. And since the funeral, I did tell my mother everything. I did tell my mother that I knew everything and how she treated me and this entire family was abhorrent, and how there was no couth or decorum. There was no concern or care for anybody else but herself, and how at this point, I know my role with her now, and that is just the role of caregiver when it's time for me to step into that role. I did tell her I hope she gets help. So she knows about all of these videos, and she's actually told me to stop posting them, and I told her, no, I want you to get help. And I'm going to end this by saying, I do hope that this helps somebody else. I hope that this gets rid of the stigma. And most importantly, I hope that my mother does get on somebody's couch and gets assessed and gets on medication, because There's so much I didn't tell, just because it's too much to tell. But all of this is to say that none of this is normal and that it's okay to need help and not know how to ask. And there's no shame in needing help, and there's no shame in not being okay.